I mean, so one of the sort of the axioms of psychology is that children pay more attention to what their parents do than what they say. I'm sure that's news to all of you. It's so if parents may say that politics are important, but if they never vote, or if they really don't participate in other kinds of ways. So one of the things to look at also in that, I think you did partially that, but you also added some media in, would be to actually look at behaviors that parents are modeling, because after all, the parents only voted about 50%.
Yeah, exactly.
So it may be that the fact the socialization is pretty effective, if the students are doing much what their parents do. And half of them voted.
Yeah, and actually that was something that I wound up coming to in constructing the measures of like civic orientations and stuff. There are questions in the LSAY of my parents think politics are important, and more direct questions like that, but they wound up kind of being outliers in the factor analysis and wound up getting dropped from the construction of the measures. So I mean, a lot of them were like the behaviors and day-to-day actions. The did I talk about politics with my parents? Did I talk about, hey, you should go vote when you turn 18? But did at the dinner table they say, hey, did you see what was on the news about issue XYZ? What do you think about that? And things like that. So
turn to general questions.
Yeah, I think we have time for general questions. If anything they want to know. Yeah, Nick.
I have a question about the demography of the population, just specifically about like class-wise, because there's been some literature about how much access lower class income or a lower class bracket will have to civic participation, and then I think that might be amplified too in the technology era where internet may not be accessed by the lower bracket who don't have computers in their household.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It'd be interesting to rerun these models controlled for class. I mean, I know the data itself, when it was originally collected, was collected from a wide variety of different schools from different settings. The rural, urban, suburban distinction is big in education research. But especially in terms of running a longitudinal study, this is an issue you run into in terms of class, that you're going to find that, disadvantaged students are going to be harder to keep track of. Something I watch in the office every day, watching the people that I work with try to track down people. That people that are easy to find reply right away. The people that are going to drop off the study are the people that maybe moved 5 or 6 times and nobody from that original school knows where they are now. Or unfortunately, there's a lot of searching of jail records for things. So that's definitely an interesting factor to consider, and something that I don't have the numbers on hand right now in terms of the distribution of it, and maybe Dr. Miller knows more offhand what that might, what the class distribution of the survey data is, or like initially.
It was actually a true probability sample of public school students in grades 7 and 10 in 1987. So it's pretty much a reflection of all social classes in public schools, which is 92% of the students at that point in time. It's true that when you try to find them when they're 30 years old, it's a little easier to find the children of the affluent than of the less affluent. But still, we've found 60-some% of everybody.
Yeah, no, I'm constantly surprised at how many we do wind up finding.
The original sample from Jeff's data is pretty much in fact it is.
Yeah, it stays pretty complete.
A very high participation rate. The participation rate was about 90%.
Yeah.
So it was across all schools in public schools, which would capture the low-income segment better than including private.
Yeah, so, but yeah, that's definitely an issue in terms of access. I know that was, I remember distinctly going way back to being in kind of middle and high school during the Clinton years. That was a major, part of the technology initiative was equal access to technology. That, even as early as then, they saw this tremendous potential of the internet to really, keep people civically involved, and wanted to make sure this was something that everyone had the ability to do. So, your questions?
I have one. I'm kind of interested in the conclusions that you drew at the end concerning internet use, and that it seems that you're saying that the higher availability of resources for political information and participation, especially on the internet, provides more opportunities for people to be involved. But couldn't you also say the opposite, that the capabilities of people to search out new news sources, post on bulletin boards and things, gives them that opportunity to do that, but that doesn't translate to active participation like voting.
Yeah, it's actually a major issue that in kind of the back and forth between Martin and Friedman there at the end, they talked about how, you know, this e-activism it wasn't really satisfying to either of them. You know, Friedman really was more ready to dismiss all of us as point-and-click activists. And whereas Martin kind of went into this, well, yeah, we do a lot of point-and-click activism, but, you know, it's not a lot of fun. Like, it doesn't really give me the sense that I've done anything. It doesn't fulfill my need to participate. At the same time, she acknowledges that the old modes of participation really aren't satisfying to her. She talks about, you know, well, I did go out and I marched against the war, but it didn't feel really genuine to me. It felt like I was dressing up in my parents' clothes, carrying their signs, and I think that's the stage that we're at now, that we're trying to figure that out. We're trying to figure out how to use this technology to an advantage where we can take our participation to that next level, and how to take it out of the internet into the real world. I think you're seeing some of that. I was really surprised this election cycle to see all the major candidates having a feature on their websites that you could click and call primary states. That you could click on a link and download an application that would basically, you'd have a list of random phone numbers in Iowa or New Hampshire, and you could sit there with your cell phone and they gave you the scripts. And, you know, even as early as, you know, 2 election cycles ago, that was something that, you know, phone banks were the name of the game, that you went in and you had the list and they had to train you and everything. And they're making those things a lot more accessible to people. You don't have to drive down to your campaign office and figure out where it is, and you can stand there and make phone calls while you're cooking dinner. So, I mean, I think there's things like that. I think we're also becoming more interested in the active nuts and bolts of it. It's not long, this election cycle, I've seen more news coverage about how the primary process works, and granted, in part that's because we've had a primary process that just won't end. But, like, even looking at the Iowa caucuses in 2004 compared to 2008, I mean, in 2004, once again, to be fair, we only had Democrats running. But I'd never seen such in-depth, or never had such curiosity as to, well, how does this work? They all get together in a gym. I mean, talk about personal personal level of political participation. You actually have to show up for 2 hours at a gym, and I think that's very telling. I sat there, and my family sat there watching TV and saying, I would never do that. So, I think you're seeing a lot more awareness of the actual nuts and bolts of how things work in real participation. So, anyone else? Yeah.
I also have a question about alternative forms of news source, such as The Daily Show. I think